Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where he was laid. So here we have our second witness to our stand. And this man, he's a wealthy man, Joseph of Arimathea. It says he was a respected man in verse 43. He was a member of the council, and Pilate appears to trust this man. And as we just saw, Joseph wants to give Jesus a proper burial. Why? Because Jesus, the Son of God, was hanging dead on a cross. And why do we bring this up in our courtroom? Because Jesus, as Mark is showing us, he was really dead. He was truly dead. It says in verse 45, it says he was a corpse. So Joseph took his body, Joseph wrapped him properly in linen cloth and buried him in a tomb with a large stone covering it. There are a few other details that aren't in the book of Mark, other pieces of evidence to further the fact that Jesus died. We see in the book of John, we know that Roman soldiers come up, and after Jesus was already considered dead, they pierced his side to make sure, absolutely sure, that he was dead. And then in the book of Matthew, it says Pilate, a man whose reputation, his very reputation, was at stake. He sent guards to the tomb to ensure the dead body, to ensure that it would not be stolen. And then we bring back to the stand, looking back at our first three eyewitnesses, these three women. Verse 47 says, they saw Joseph do all of this. They witnessed him do all of this. The women saw Joseph bury Jesus dead. They saw him do this on a Friday at the very end of the day before dark. They wanted to do it before Saturday. They wanted to do all this before Saturday because Saturday was considered the Sabbath. And then we see in chapter 16, verse 1, this is what it says. When the Sabbath was passed, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. And they were saying to one another, who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb? And so our first three, our three women, our first eyewitnesses, Mary, and Salome. After the Sabbath on Sunday, they want to honor Jesus by taking spices to his tomb, and they want to anoint him. Why? Because the last time they saw Jesus, he was dead, and he was wrapped in linen, buried in a tomb, a heavy tomb that these women could not move on their own. But when they got to the tomb, their anxiety and their worries of how they're going to move this rock, how they're going to move this tomb, it was taken care of. Why? Because the guarded tomb was open. The stone had rolled away. The book of Matthew, it says it was an earthquake. The angel of the Lord moved it. But Mark doesn't share that. He writes simply that it had been rolled away. It was observed to be moved. And then we see starting in verse 4 of chapter 16. And looking up, they saw that the stone had been rolled back. It was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, dressed in a white robe, and they were alarmed. Now we have a very descriptive account here, and I think we can understand it a little bit because we have a young man sitting in a tomb with a white robe where once laid a dead body. I would be alarmed too, right? And then look at Mark, look what it says starting in verse 6. And he said to them, do not be alarmed. You see, Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified, he has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you.